I am so excited to bring to you my personal journey. First, I would like to thank my friend Michelle. As I was writing this story and thinking about this video, I noticed I wasn't talking about my father. And there's a reason for that. He just wasn't present in my life. As I grew older, I was very curious about my father. Having my grandparents raise me early on in my life due to my mother's schizophrenia, I was just accustomed to the lack of a father. As an adult, I can see now how that would play a huge role in my life. I did always wonder about my father, and once the age of DNA testing was more common, I did a 23andMe test. At that time, I did the test as more of a curiosity about genetics and ancestry. About a year into the results, I received a message from a woman. There was a match. Her and another woman had a huge connection with me, but this woman specifically reached out to me, and she actually had a match that said she was my mother, and it had taken me aback because obviously she wasn't my mother. And she said, "Hi, we match, and it says I'm your mother, but I know I'm not your mother, and this is curious." And so we corresponded a little bit, and she was from the California area, which is where I grew up as a child and was born. We were very curious as to why our DNA came back as her as my mom, obviously. So we sent in our information to a DNA detective. And when the information came back, the DNA detective had determined that she was not my mother, but my aunt. And that the only reason that this would be because her brother would be my father. And so that's how I found out who my real father was, thinking somebody else was my father growing up. So in that process, I found out that this man had 3 children. It would be my older brother and then 2 younger brothers. So I have 3 half brothers. One older brother who didn't want anything to do with any of this information. So he's completely doesn't want anything to do with me. And then my father doesn't want anything to do with me. And then the 2 younger brothers. In fact, he asked he and his children and his sister to stop all contact with me altogether. Throughout the process, my 2 younger brothers did contact me, and it was a beautiful experience. Unfortunately, my youngest brother tragically lost his life shortly after the process, and we did have plans to meet up halfway in Las Vegas. Due to the complexity of the story and my DNA journey, I will do a video dedicated just for that grief. Some of the disclaimer in this video is it depicts abuse of a child, but I did want to share with you some of the disenfranchised grief that I do go through. There's quite a bit of different types of grief, but one of the main griefs you'll see that I go through, in addition to losing grandparents and my mother and all the different losses, the disenfranchised grief that I do go through with right out of the gate, coming out of the womb, I don't have a parent, and then losing my mother and kind of not even having her there from the beginning. Thank you so much for joining me right now. I'm so excited to bring to you my personal journey, part 2. And I ended up joining their church at the time. And so I got baptized. And then 3 days later, Child Services came and took me from their home and put me in Child Protective Services with the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. It felt like it hurt. It felt like it kind of felt like an abandonment again. So,
and what brought that about?
Well, they didn't want me living there.
Who's they? Just
My friend and her parents.
Oh.
So the only reason
called, so instead of saying, "Sheila, we can't have you here," they called the state, and the state
they called they called
Mm-hmm.
the LDS Social Services, but LDS Social Services couldn't get me adopted unless I was LDS. So that process kind of felt
okay.
Yeah. So looking back, if I've shared this story before, a lot of people felt like I was coerced into joining the church.
Mm-hmm.
And so I've never really put much stock in it because at the time I needed to, I didn't know anything about God. I didn't know anything about the afterlife. And so it was a comfort to me to hear that I could actually see my grandparents again. So nobody gets to really take that from me or put those words into my mouth. I joined the church at 16 because I chose to. And so whether that was their motive or not, that was something I chose to do, period. Mm-hmm. So that was my choice anyway. So I did join the church when I was 16, the LDS church. And I did go into to the
the adoption program. And my mom, she just signed the papers over from Salt Lake City. It was no problem. And I lived with a family in Provo, in Park City, some random family. And it was the most bizarre experience because I'm like, I work 2 jobs and go to school. And they told me I was going to stop doing all of that. I was Miss Independent. And I was like, oh, I'm sorry. You don't know me. I packed up my bags and I hit the road. And they're like, well, we're going to call you a runaway. And I'm like, call me whenever you want. I'm out of here. They just didn't, yeah, that wasn't going to happen. And so I left after like, I think 3 days that lasted, a whole of 3 days. Mm-hmm. And I left and I started the process to become emancipated. So I became emancipated by like 17. I was almost 18 years old. The emancipation, the judge, I went and saw the judge, and the judge is like, you have been through the ringer. And he signed the emancipation. He's like, if your mom's willing to sign you away to some random church that she knows nothing about, you are going to be emancipated. And I was able to be emancipated. So
what does that mean?
it means that I'm legally an adult and I don't need to answer to anybody else, and nobody.
So you can go live on your own
and sign a contract to have my own apartment. I was 17 at the time when it happened, but the fact that a church could come and take me away was a little scary to the state, and the fact that I could hold 2 jobs and go to school and kind of govern myself, but I couldn't sign a contract to have my own apartment was a little bit unfair to me. And so the
I
judge,
just want to point out that through all of this, you are holding down 2 jobs and going to school.
Yeah, I wanted to graduate.
Okay, so again, that is incredible that you had that in you.
Yeah.
Because really, you could have gone so many ways.
Absolutely. And I've always been a good girl. Like everyone's friends were like, she's not Mormon. She doesn't have parents. You can't hang out with her. And they're like, she's the good one of the group, Mom. She's the one. So then what happened is I started selling drugs.
Okay, well, of course, that's a natural progression.
It is. I got tired. I just got tired and I started selling drugs.
Okay.
I did.
All right. Sheila, how did you get there? Okay, so you were emancipated. Did you go get your own apartment?
So my mom's boyfriend and her broke up, and my mom had an apartment.
Okay.
And we lived in Salt Lake City, Utah, and I just was tired. I was tired of commuting. I was tired of it all. And I had a neighbor, and they had just tons and tons and tons of things going on. And she said, have some access to this. And I said, well, I know some kids in Lehigh that would love some of this stuff. It was way cheaper than working 2 jobs.
Okay. So, and you're still living with your mom?
Yeah, I was supporting my mom in an apartment.
So now you're kind of the parent, in essence.
Oh, I've been the parent.
You have become officially the emancipated parent.
Yep, I paid the bills.
Of your mother.
I paid the rent.
And you're funding her. Okay.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm. I mean, she's never had a job.
And
she gets SSI.
How long did that last?
A couple years. And I meet my first husband at this point.
Okay.
So.
Wow. All right. So tell me about that.
So I meet my first husband, and that's fun. And we decide to. I don't deal for very long. Mm-hmm. It's like a year.
Okay, not very long.
Yeah, it's a big deal. I decide that this man that I meet. He's LDS, and he decides that he wants to move to Utah County, and we're going to get married in the temple.
Oh, okay. All right.
And we move to Utah County, and I decide I'm going to move my mom to Utah County, and we get married and have 2 kids.
Okay.
And that relationship was a situation where it's a classic. I think it's like one of those things where you just try to move into something better than what you had. Absolutely, I should have not gone into that relationship. It was very controlling. It was very abusive. As far as in my situation, I should not have chose that partner for me. I could have chose a better partner, but I was young, and it was better than any situation I was in before. So I thought it was the right situation for me, but I was, it was not a good situation.
Mm-hmm.
I have 2 beautiful sons out of that marriage, and it lasted 10 years, And that's about it on that.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't really want to talk much about that, only because it's in the past, and I probably don't want to smear any
Right.
about that.
So a question comes to my mind. I can see this Sheila rising up. Like, you become emancipated. You become the breadwinner. You become the parent. And then you get into a relationship and fall into
How it takes a hard
pattern
turn. Yeah.
of abuse.
Absolutely.
So, what
and I turn into a toxic person.
causes that?
Yeah.
How? I guess my question is,
Yeah.
you're rising up, you're kind of fighting back for yourself, and then to fall back into that pattern. Why does that happen?
That's a good question. I think what happens is there's no education there. It's a series of not being educated, number one. I think a lot of people fall into this pattern. There's nobody to lead me or educate me above me, no parental figure. So I didn't have any maternal grandparents or parents or siblings or aunts or uncles or anybody to really take me under their wing. If you think about it, I mean, there wasn't a single soul to say, hey kid, let me help you here. There was no one for me. And then I marry into a family where they're looking at me like, if you think about it, this vagabond comes into their family, this ruffian, this hooligan, and there's no, you think about somebody who's going to marry your child, and you almost want papers on these people, like a dog breed.
Yeah.
And there's nothing. And so you've got so much to prove. It's just so hard. It's so different when the coin is on the other foot. So I don't know. I was bitter. I was so bitter. At that point, I was bitter. And I think what happened to me was I had no idea how to express. And I'm still in survival mode at this point. At this point, I'm a little girl who's been done wronged. I was wronged. I'm in survival mode, and so then I'm just bittered. So here I am in a marriage and a relationship where I married at 18 years old, and not only did I fought so hard to have all of these freedoms and my whole life ahead of me, and then I get stuck with a womp womp, and I'm like, crap, and it's for time and all eternity. What? Like, I was just so bitter. Now I'm stuck for life. And that really flipped things on its head for me, I think. When you think about the perspective of the LDS church, we have things for time and all eternity. Mm-hmm. And I don't think there's no turning back at that point.
Yeah.
There was no rewriting that one. And so I think I was just...
And how are you dealing with motherhood at this point? Because you're still a wounded little girl who's been abandoned by herself.
I was so hurt. I felt so betrayed by the gods. I felt so betrayed that I could be sent to this planet with nobody to help me raise these children. I was so upset. I thought, how dare I? I felt so alone. The loneliness. I thought I was alone as a child, an only child, for so long. And then I was sent these sons to take care of with nobody. And I love my in-laws, don't get me wrong, but they just weren't present. I just kept thinking, because I had this idea in my mind, I just couldn't wait to get a mother-in-law. This was going to be my big break. And it wasn't the one I wanted. It wasn't going to be, that wasn't the one. And then I thought, well, there's going to be the sister-in-laws, but I was the oldest. I'd married the son that was the oldest son in the family. And so they were all younger. And I thought, oh, family dinners are going to be this thing. And it just was never, ever, ever what you expect it to be. Of course it can't be. You can't have what you think it's going to be. And it seems like in the families, even in my current marriage right now, it just seems like I'm always the one trying to create these scenarios that just never pan out. And so I became really bitter. Just like, why me? Why not? Why can't it be the way I want it? Obviously, I'm not that way now. Clearly, I've changed my perspective. Clearly. But I was bitter, and I became such a hateful, spiteful person. I turned into such an angry person.
Okay. And so tell me, we're not going to talk about that whole situation and that whole marriage, but
I'll talk a
Tell
little
me-
bit about it. I just don't want to be.
tell me about it and then tell me what happened next.
Yeah, so I went through a divorce. I got to a point where, so there was some things that happened. So I did transgress. I cheated on my first husband, and I decided to leave. We divorced. And after that, I left the church for my own personal reasons. And at that point, we decided to just go our separate ways, but raise the kids together in a way that we didn't have like a bitter, like, we were going to just take the kids 50-50. There wasn't going to be, I'm taking the kids and
Custody
we can't see
battle.
them.
Yeah.
It was going to be joint custody. We did joint custody.
Okay.
We were both heartbroken that it ended that way for the children's sake. No, we didn't like each other, but we weren't going to put our kids in the middle as much as possible. Nobody was perfect.
And how did that work? In custody.
We just, he had him on the weekends. I had him on the weekday. They lived with me some, and they lived with him some. It wasn't perfect, but it ended up panning out, and it was what it was. I can't really say that it was the greatest thing, but it wasn't the worst. I've seen worse. It's not the greatest.
Okay, so you're divorced, and then what's next for you?
I get remarried, and I find the love of my life. So I remarried my husband, Brandon, and we tried to have a child for quite some time, and we ended up not being able to have children. And then I take fertility, and we try, and then I give up. And then 30 days later, I'm pregnant, and we have my daughter, Destiny, who is now 10. And that was just pretty magical for both of us. So it's my husband's only child. And so my sons become big brothers to Destiny, which is so sweet. So there's a gap. My oldest and my daughter are 18 years apart, but it's okay because they just love her to pieces. And so through that process, I go through, when I got married to Brandon, I already knew there was a lot of healing that happened between, the divorcing and remarrying. I already knew that there was a lot of healing I had to do on my own that I didn't want to get with somebody and just jump into another relationship. I knew that I had a lot of personal healing and growth to do. And so when I realized that there was all of this trauma and PTSD, when I knew that was going on inside of me, I knew I couldn't drag anybody else along for that journey. And so I started a process called EMDR therapy, which I'm a huge advocate for. And basically EMDR therapy is a therapy where you go in and you examine each trauma one piece at a time, and you put it back where it's supposed to go into the brain. And so that you're not having these triggers live in the forefront of your life. And the treatment itself did wonders for me. I was able to, first of all, function with a daughter. I was able to live my life with Destiny, not thinking that everything I was doing was going to affect her in that way. And I was able to not think that everyone was out to get my daughter. That was a huge issue for me, thinking, oh my gosh, everybody's a sexual predator. That was a huge thing. Because the statistics of every woman is going to be sexually offended in some way. That upsets me. Have you ever had to deal with that, just worrying about somebody harming your daughter? No.
I have been aware of it. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I think because of that, I've been cautious, but I have noticed that with you, specifically with Destiny, whether it's, hey, can we give Destiny a ride here or there? And you've been very cautious, which I think is good.
Yeah.
I don't think that's a bad thing. So what brought about the healing? Did you just think, I need to get into therapy? I'm divorced. I've got these 2 kids. I've got to heal.
Yeah. I think it's the drive to want to be whole for my partner and want to be whole. And you have to choose to want to live a better life. you have to want to grow. And also, I never really grieved the death of my grandparents. So one thing that happened is I during the time I was married to my ex-husband, I started healing with my own mother. I started inviting her over into my life, and there was a point where I was just coming to peace with my own spirituality, and I started getting on better terms with my own mom. And she decided that she was going to stop drinking, and she stopped drinking, and she decided to join the church. And not many mentally ill people do they let join the church in her situation. So they baptized my mom, actually, which was a really spiritual experience. It was crazy, actually. But long story short, with my mom, her and I came to peace. We came to a lot of peace. And then one day I came home and there was a knock on the door, and it was a police officer. It was a police officer, and they said, "I'm sorry, but your mom passed away." And that was really hard because the grief that I felt was like, I always kind of hated my mom for all the things she'd put me through. It was hard because I felt such a sense of relief. I was really glad she'd passed on because it was just a really hard relationship, like from beginning to end, because we'd fought on and off. Even in the peaceful times, we had our ups and downs. I mean, we were either at each other's throat or we were trying to make peace. And so it's hard. I talk to people about this all the time. Like, people are caring for their mothers or fathers, and they're awful people. And I'm open with them. I'm like, it's okay to wish for them to pass. That's okay. But I remember feeling like this sense of relief, but it was really hard at the same time. So my mom passed, and I remember feeling like, okay, this is where my family is going to surround me and love me and finally help me take care of them. And nobody came to her funeral. And I buried my mom all by myself. There was a family member there, and they had a video camera. Someone had sent one of their kids there to show up with the video camera. And I remember just thinking, are you kidding me right now? My cousin Sherry was there. It was one of the uncle's daughters, and I just was like, this has got to be a joke. Like, you've got to be kidding me right now. So one of the struggles I had at my mom's passing was I was completely poor, so poor, and it's expensive to bury somebody. So I get this phone call, and she was living in a group home with a roommate in Payson, Utah, and her roommate, there's like these things called the house parents. They take care of the house, and the house parents calling me, and she's like, "There's people trying to get into your mom's house," and I'm like, "Okay, what's going on?" And they said, they're trying to come and take her stuff. And I said, what are you talking about? And so what had happened is my aunt, who'd given her things over the years, was trying to go loot it and take it back. And I said, you're kidding me right now. And so this aunt and uncle who'd given her things were just trying to take it all back. And I thought, this is just so insulting. And then I get to the funeral home where my mom's body was, and they said, do you know Sam and Tom? And I said, yeah. And they're the same people that were trying to take like her coffee pot and things like that. They're trying to get the jewelry off of her body. And I said, are you kidding me right now? And I was like, this is ridiculous. And they're like, but they can't have it. It's yours. And I'm like, yeah, just leave it on her body. Like, they gave it to me in a little bag. And it was like this little tiny ring that she'd wore that they'd given her for Christmas like 10 years prior. Oh. And like, when I talked to them on the phone, the first thing they said to me was not like, oh, I'm sorry, my sister's passed away. Are you okay? It was, we're not giving you any money. Like, there was no comfort or anything. And it was just this big, like, kick to the stomach. Like, I thought for sure my family was going to come around and support. I'm her only daughter. Like, something's going to come of this. Like, I need some comfort here. And there was none to be found. And for years and years and years, my grandparents had a plot for my mother out in Cedar Valley next to them. And so Lehigh Cemetery, there's this place called Wing Mortuary in Lehigh. They had taken care of my mom's body for me, and they knew that there was a plot for her out there in the Cedar Fort Cemetery. And I told him about the plot. And so I couldn't afford a funeral, so there was going to be a graveside service. So we drive out there to the graveside service, and that's all I can afford is a small graveside service. And so I do this little balloon release out there, and we're all standing out there, and I say a few words. And afterwards, the caretaker pulls me aside and he said, you know, your mom's not going to be buried out here. And I said, why? What's going on? He said, there's no plot for her out here. We came out here and somebody has illegally buried a baby's body out here in her plot. And I said, what? What are you talking about? This is so bizarre. Well, come to find out, my other aunt, who I love and I've made complete peace with, had a miscarriage years and years ago, and they used the plot and buried the miscarriage in there. And so the plot can't be used. And so now they are like, so we're going to take your mom's body back to Lehigh and figure out what to do with it. And I'm like in shock. Like, I don't know what to do at this point. So then I get a phone call from Lehigh and they're like, somebody's donated a grave from Lehigh Cemetery to you. And so my mom has a plot at Lehigh Cemetery.
So she's in Lehigh.
There's no headstone. I've never been able, all these years later,
Yeah.
I've never been able to afford a headstone. But she does have a plot in Lehigh that we go occasionally, and I'll go and I'll huck a flower on. But that's the story of my mom, and it's just been this bitter thing for me.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, from all of this, what I see and what I love, Sheila, is just what a loving, wonderful mother you are to Destiny.
Oh.
I see that and I just think, from what you have come from and that pattern that you have broken, that's really inspiring and incredible.
Thank you.
It is. That's amazing.
Yeah, I've come far.
Yeah, you have. Okay, so I just want to come back around. So all this has happened. You've done this healing, and now you have Destiny. How is your relationship with your boys?
My boys' relationship and I is very good. So after the divorce, after everything happened, they're grown and full, and they're good. They know that their dad and I both love them very much. We are in a space now where everything's been fine since the divorce. I mean, that was a hardship for them. I don't think any parents want to see their kids go through that. That was really painful. I really think that divorce is a hardship that no parent wants to ever inflict upon their children. I think it's one of the hardest things we can do to our kids is rip their parents apart from each other. However, through it all, one of the things that I've always tried to do is let my children know how much I love them, but at the same time, let them know, like, this is my first rodeo on planet Earth. This is my first time hitting the big show, and I'm not perfect. And I'll be the first to tell them, like, hey, this is the first time I've been here. This is the first time I'm doing this, but I love you, and I love, maybe not unconditionally. I have some conditions, but I really do love my kids. I try to let them be who they are. My eldest son, he is 28 years old. I can't believe I have a 28-year-old son, and he's navigating this earth just like the rest of us. And as he's going through it and making mistakes, you know, I'm here to shoulder that with him and walk this earth with him. And my second son, Justice, who is 23 years old now, he's living in Florida with his boyfriend and super happy, just happy to be out of the state of Utah, kind of experiencing what that looks like outside of Utah. I have a great relationship with him, and he knows how much I love him as well. I think that they're happy for me. I think that they're both happy that I am living my truth, no matter what that looks like to me too, because I give them the same respect that they give me. So I would expect nothing less.
And how did all this culminate in you starting this podcast?
That's a great question. I love to sit and hear people's story, and I love to share their journey. But I think most of all, there's a time in our society right now where there's so much hate and animosity and a division in our world right now. There's so many people that are suffering, and we're divided. Everyone's divided right now. And I think one of the things that I'm seeing the most happen right now is where we've got people in their opinions. Let's take the Charlie Kirk thing, for example. That was so horrible to even deal with. It divided families. And social media is dividing families right now too. But I think if we can just take the time and sit down and listen to one another and hear each other's story and each other's hearts and get back to the roots of what and who we really are, there's so much humanity left in this earth. And there's some robbery going on. People are robbing us of who we are. We really need to sit down and get back together. Humanity needs to be put back together. Mm-hmm. I think there's some robbery going on, and just because we don't share each other's exact values and point of view does not mean we do not need to come together as planet Earth and humanity. Something's dividing us in a way that's pulling us apart like never before, and it's scaring me. And I think humanity needs to really take a hard look at what's going on.
Yeah, we're all doing our best with what we have been given.
Yeah.
Some have been given a lot, some have been given next to nothing.
For example, I feel like, are you the kind of person that would give the shirt off your back if somebody needed it? Or are we cultivating a culture where it's like, well, absolutely, I wouldn't give you the shirt off my back if you're going to be a Charlie Kirk supporter. What happened there? Where did that gap get so horribly bridged?
Yeah.
What's missing now? Something's gone on in the last, I'd say, 5 years that's really put a big wedge in our society. We need a little more Mother Teresa around here.
Yeah, we do.
I'm scared.
Okay, well, is there anything that you want to leave with the listeners? What advice would you give, or what would you want to pass on to those who are listening? Maybe those who have gone through traumatic experiences like you have. What would you want them to know?
You are not your generational baggage. You are not what your parents are or were, and there is hope for you. You're not your sins. You're not your past. You're not... There's just hope. I feel like a lot of us put a lot of weight on the life that we were raised, everything that we're surrounded by, or what our parents did before us. It doesn't have to be what you make of it. It's never too late to change. It's never too late to get an education. You go back to school. I've gone to several of them. But for example, I see a lot of people who, for me, I'm going in for my knee replacement. That's a long time coming for me. I could have sat aside and just been afraid, but I'm not. I'm facing it. I'm afraid to die. I don't want to die on the table, but you have to face your fears. You have to do it. You just have to. You only get one chance at this life, so live it to its fullest.
Get yourself out of the situations. Rise up as well as you can.
Yeah.
And
I want to say that you're not alone, but sometimes you are, and sometimes you're your only advocate. Sometimes you have to be your only advocate.
So be an advocate for yourself.
Yeah.
That is some good advice, Sheila.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you for sharing your story. This has been a wonderful experience, and I hope everyone has learned something. I know that I have.
Yeah. Thank you for being willing to hold space for me. I appreciate you.
You're welcome,
Thank you so much.